Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is Asterosphere Kairos with your weekly Astro Forecast. And with me, I have Christa from Practical Astros.
Hi.
And here we are doing Wednesday to Wednesday to honor our good friend Mercury, Hermes, the god of astrology. So this week, we're looking at the 3rd to the 10th of September. Week 1 of September.
Quite a week.
Leave, it's September already.
Yep.
Crazy, isn't it? And it is quite a busy week. We've got Mercury and Virgo squaring Uranus in Gemini. That's a big one. Mercury is ruling Uranus. So Uranus is about to station. He's already at the degree that it's stationing at. So this could be loud, even though it's in a mutable sign. And then we have Mars in Libra squaring Jupiter in Cancer, and that's the cardinal signs up, initiating something. Mars uncomfortable in Libra, wanting to take action with this square. Then Uranus will station retrograde, that turning moment, and quite often the Uranus significations really come through at that point of the turning on the 6th. And then we have the eclipses, and we already are feeling this eclipse season. We've had numerous problems getting this episode to you already. It's an ongoing thing. Days of recording have been set up, and unfortunately, Sonia is poorly, and Christa has stepped in at very, very short notice. So thank you, Christa. I really appreciate you being here.
That's kind of the Uranian signature. Just jump in, jump out.
It really is, isn't it? So thank you for joining at such short notice.
Sure.
And yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, I did record one all on my own last night without Sonia, and there was no audio. So that again is that Uranian influence. All the eclipsing, just no sound, totally eclipsed.
Or the double-bodied nature of it all. Yeah, I like the eclipse signature of being able to see with one sense, but not see with another sense. So you're well versed in this, and maybe it was just the shadow speak before the light speak. You know how the double-bodieds, they like to do things twice or do things over again. There's Bob Dylan is a placed Gemini. And he has a line of, what price do I have to pay to keep from going through these things twice? And I think that's kind of the double-bodied mutable blessing and curse.
Yeah, but I'm so happy it's worked out because here I am. So that's much better for you than my endless thoughts going on. Have this conversation. So what do you think of week 1, Christa?
I'm excited for just the Uranian signature because this is the first time Uranus has been in Gemini in our lifetime, with Mercury exalted and domiciled in Virgo. And so the host of that Uranus is very well placed and very well expressed. The square that is natural between Virgo and Gemini always exists, and having Uranus in one and Mercury in the other, it just feels like a really loud popping electrical. We have a technical problem that we know is coming up with one of the slides. And to me, that's very Uranus. And we'll get to that joke when we get to that. But it's kind of what reminds me of, like, things just kind of pop off, they fire off, they sparkle, they electrify, maybe they burn some nervous system ends, I mean, it's lively. That's what it is that lively nature of Uranus. I have Uranus in my first house, so I get excited with Uranian things because I feel like I know what they feel like when they really come through, and they can be shocking, and they can like kind of zap you out of things, and they can be very disruptive, which isn't always necessarily what you want, but they still happen. Those things happen. And so I'm excited for it just because this is kind of a first witness of a phenomenon that we can foresee. That's what we can use astrology for. But even though we foresee that aspect will be happening, it's still so wild of how it will be expressed that I've got my popcorn out, so ready to make popcorn on the fires that the Uranus might be causing.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's so unpredictable, isn't it? Still, I mean, Uranus in Taurus, we found like people were getting trees going through their houses, weren't they? And that, with hindsight, you think, yes, that's Uranus in Taurus, the stability of the tree growing in the Taurian garden and then being uprooted. But it's only with hindsight, it was hard to like predict that. You know that it's Taurus, but you don't know. And then with Gemini, it is that data and the mind and the ways that we think. We'll come to that when we look at the chart, but maybe inventions or maybe announcements or things that we could see. But that would be the positive side, but also the shadow side of those things that we don't want to see. Data getting messed up internet systems, Starlink's going down or something.
Yeah, I mean, the positive end of it is looking ahead at those things. It's a good reminder, maybe export a CSV file of all your emails to a thumb drive, or just back up your records. Just go ahead and be proactive with some of your electronic data that you would like to retain, so that if you do have lightning strike your house and it zaps your laptop, that data is stored on the cloud, or it's stored on an external hard drive, or even a thumb drive, or whatever it is. I mean, you can, if me saying these words, you're like, man, it would be really difficult if I lost that, like whatever that is, go ahead and just maybe do some mercurial magic around it to keep it in multiple places, so that it's not just stored in one, so that if that one place that it's stored gets disrupted, at least you have a backup.
Yeah. Yeah, because Mercury in Virgo loves those multiples and love multiple files of data.
Yeah.
You're really
Yeah.
Mercury in Virgo happy. So here we have the chart, and I've ringed these for you because it's the chart of the 5th Mercury in Virgo, and they square at 0127, which is the degree that Uranus will go retrograde at a few days later on the 6th.
Yeah. So it's already slowing down tremendously. Uranus is a very long transit speed. So at this degree, especially if you have a mutable placement within, within that 1.5 degree of Gemini, you're probably already feeling it, because it's basically where Uranus is now. But that square disrupts something that I think that the retrograde station itself, it's like a retrograde degree to minute is like a little bit of an imprint on a nativity or on a transit, or, a transit chart. It just kind of marks the spot of like, this is where I'm deciding to turn, slow down, to go back, and I'll cross over that exact point. But this is the point. One, it's of the square, but then also it's of that retrograde that I think is a significant degree to pay attention to, both now and then when it crosses over that again later in the year, I think.
Yeah, it will do. Yeah. And I was looking at the news just before I started recording, and the European president, I think, was flying today, and their plane lost their GPS. And at the moment, it's being blamed on Russia. But I am seeing like this square is already forming, as Mercury is already in Virgo and getting closer to Uranus. So it's already an engagement as we're recording on the 1st. So we're only 2 days out. So that's the most intense time as the two planets are coming close together. So for me, I'm thinking it's this square. Yeah, Russia might have had something to do with it, but I think this square is a perfect example of a plane losing its GPS. And, the write-up says they had to land using paper maps. And it's a reminder that, yeah, we've got all this technology, but at the end of the day, the planes have to have those maps on board, and pilots have to have those navigational skills.
Yeah.
That they may have all this technology, but it can fail. And the skills to be able to land a plane using those old-fashioned maps that, many of us have lost the skill or forgotten the skill of reading. And the newer generations probably won't even learn that skill.
Yeah, see, it reminds me of and the importance of getting lost and then using your internal compass to find your way home. It's, again, maybe it's because I have Uranus in the 1st. I love to not rely on, I have Uranus in Scorpio, so it's that, to not rely on things telling me what to do. I will use GPS if I'm absolutely lost, but I like to look at a map and then get a sense of generally what direction do I need to go to get there. And I will get lost, and I will find new ways, and I'll have all these options so that I don't have to take the same way between 2 points that I go to often. There was a study that was done on London cab drivers, and the size of their pituitary was enormous because they didn't use maps. They had the maps in their head, and they knew how to get there, the time of day that you would have to take to get to a certain point. They did not use GPS, but that I'm pretty sure it was their pituitary. That pituitary then shrunk once they retired because they weren't using that much of their brain. So it's just important. Like you can actively change your brain when you problem solve, and these little problem solving of just getting from point A to point B. Just try it. Like if you go to work and go home, and there are other ways to get there, even if they take a few minutes longer, like try them. Just shake it up. shake up the things so that you can get different omens at different times of day, and just know that you have options to kind of navigate and move around when there is this Uranian influence. It's kind of exciting, even if it's the mundane. And I looked back to see when Uranus is going to cross back over this 1 degree 27-minute point. It's actually May 21st of next year. So
Right.
it'll take a while for it to cross back over at this actual angle. And the sun is going to be 0 degree 25 minutes. So the next day they're going to Cazimi.
Wow. So it
Yeah.
really is gonna, like, this time is significant, and then in 2026 it's gonna be significant. I was just thinking when you were talking about the London cab drivers as well, they call that test the knowledge. They
Yeah.
have to study and pass that test, and like you say,
Mm.
it's on timing as well, when's the best time to use which route, and learning the route, and it can be quite hard for a lot of them, but it's so mercurial. So yeah, it's a thing. To have that London black cab is like a status symbol. You can work for other cab companies, but to get that black cab is quite a badge of honor among the London.
Representing the knowledge that you have to carry just within your own body. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that there's also like a gestational time period, like between September and May is, 9 months. And so like this 9-month cycle of an inspiration before it comes back around to being the original inspiration. It's not a classic, new moon cycle sort of a thing, but just, what will take 9 months to come back around and then be realized again, because the sun will be with that Uranus in Gemini there. Mercury will also be in Gemini at that point, a few degrees away. So it does feel just tied in.
Doesn't it? Because Uranus will go back into Taurus in that time in November and then return back. And it reminds me as well to look at how these planets are all connected, because Uranus will connect with
Oh yeah.
in a trine in that time that it's retrograding.
It doesn't go back to Capricorn. So
I was saying in Aquarius, but yeah, it's on my honeycomb that they've trined, and then Uranus and Neptune will form the sextile. So whether it's just that they're at O1 and engaged.
Yeah, I think it's when so next year, Uranus and Pluto will trine at 4 degrees.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's going to be well
And
past see me in a different world, really, in 2020.
yeah, I was going to mention that. It's like all of these outers being, Saturn in Aries, Uranus in Gemini, Neptune and in Aries, Pluto in Aquarius, all of these, this is like this first trial run with all these outers and these air and fire signs together at the same time, in our lifetime at least. And they're all going to kind of backtrack a little bit. Saturn's, as of today, back into Pisces. We're recording on September 1st. And Neptune will dip back in. When does Neptune go in?
In October 22nd.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it'll dip in and then go back again. So it's like we have this little trial period of all these electrified yang, solar, masculine style, of the air and fire signs together. And then they retrograde one final time back into the water and earth signs. But then next year it's full on.
Yeah.
They're all in those fiery, airy signs simultaneously without the retrogrades back into the feminine signs. They will still go retrograde as they do, but the story will be held within those signs. So these trines and sextiles that they've been kind of flirting with, perfecting to a certain degree now, are just hints of what will then be fully realized in 2026. And I like that we get this little respite, especially with Saturn moving out of Aries. And then, I've enjoyed Uranus and Gemini mostly, but, famous last words, we're going to have a long transit of Uranus and Gemini. And so I've enjoyed kind of that spiciness, that electricity that it brings. And yet maybe we need one last kind of final wrap up lesson of Uranus and Taurus. Neptune and Aries is hard to even, consider. I'm really confused with that one, but I don't have to figure it out right now.
No, I always find it useful to look at the decan rulers as well with these long transits. Uranus at the moment has Jupiter ruling, which is really nice when Jupiter's well placed. So Jupiter in Cancer is exalted, so that makes Uranus behave a bit nicer, and also we've got its its sign ruler as well placed. So that just brings the significations through much more nicely. But
Mm-hmm.
for the middle decan, it'll be Mars. So we might see very much a switch up then. And Mars is quicker through the signs than Jupiter. And then it will be the Sun. We'll see Uranus have that switch up. And of the three outer planets, Uranus is the fastest. So it's going to be the easiest to track through the decans as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested in that kind of thing, which I am, in just noticing how it's showing up in each of those decans as well. Because for Pluto, it's going to be a much longer journey through those three decans. So at the moment, Pluto's also in a benefic decan with Venus. So we can also see maybe how Pluto's significations change as Venus moves through her dignities as well. But of course, Pluto's only triggered when a planet's aspecting it and asking something of it, and that's when it shows up.
I also want to shout out those that have Uranus in Sagittarius. Looks to be about like 81 to 88 roughly. And so if you were born 81 to 1988, check it because there was some retrogrades there. With Uranus and Gemini, you're beginning your Uranus half return or your Uranus opposition. That is so beautifully liberating and disruptive. It's like the beginning of the middle of life, of like disrupting the patterns and the habits and the ways of thinking and the ways of belief that you've carried with you up until this point, that Uranus is really happy to set you free from. And it can be incredibly difficult in the beginning and frightening and new, but it is so beautifully liberating through that whole process. So shout out to those millennials in the first part of basically the decade of the 80s getting that Uranus half return, because it is really having Uranus in Scorpio and having gone through this Uranus half return. It has been an incredible journey, and it was very scary in the beginning. But now I'm like, no regrets.
No regrets. And also, somebody with a Uranus in Virgo. So Uranus in Virgo people as well, getting us. So that's also a call to action.
Yeah, Uranus in Virgo is like 62 to 68, roughly.
Yeah. So Mars in Libra. And it makes me think Alexandra, when she was doing those presentations with Adam for Nightlight, was talking about Mars in a Venusian sign versus Venus in a Mars sign. And she was talking about the SAS soldier dropped into the middle of a ballet corps or an opera performance or something. And how is that soldier going to adapt? So I can't unsee that now when I see Mars in Libra. And it's like, okay, so how is this SAS soldier going to cope with the tutus and the ballet shoes and the pinks of everything? And then just the call for harmony and peace that he finds around him. Is he going to protect? Is he going to be the bouncer? Or is he going to be stage managing? Is he going to be courageous in some way, getting up, climbing up and managing the lights? Or, what kind of role is he going to find for himself? I very much doubt he's going to be on stage dancing. But Libra being the sign of the scales and justice. It's some sort of call to justice that Mars is answering.
Yeah.
And of course, there it's squaring Jupiter in Cancer, which is all about nurturing the family and compassion and finding that empathy for everybody. So in what way is that coming through and being fought for? Are we, if we're looking at us personally, fighting for the right things and fighting in the right way? It's like maybe a gala performance, fundraising, but looking at the wrong cause maybe, or is it the right cause? But maybe re-examining, because a square calls us to action, re-examining the causes that we fight for. And can we redirect those better? How do we place our compassion? That's what it brings to mind for me. And of course, this is the cardinal signs. So sometimes it can start as one thing, but it can change into something else. You can initiate it in one way, but it can end up being multiple things or different things by the time it grows. So allow it to change in this square, because it starts off with the conjunction, but now it gets to the square. Mars and Jupiter started with the conjunction, but it gets to the square, and this is a time to adjust and pivot and change. So maybe we're being asked to change how we direct that compassion.
Yeah, the phrase poetic justice comes to mind with Mars and Libra being that Venusian sign, but being squared by Jupiter, because Jupiter is in the superior position. There's also contra-intisha between Mars and the Sun. And so there's this secret tension, the secret opposition between the Sun and the malefic contrary to the Sun sect. So there seems like this square could maybe in the moment feel like things coming down around you, a little bit of a breakdown, but something that needs to happen, something that is like maybe been ignored up to this point. You can look at the Libra house specifically coming from the Cancer house, like what is being imposed, what sort of justice and fairness, compassionate fairness is coming from Cancer to the Libra house and saying this needs to be dealt with now. Maybe you don't feel like you're ready to, but it's going to be dealt with now. And the Sun has got Jupiter's back, being in a sextile, but being a little bit opposed to that Mars, like a secret opposition is what a contra-intisha is. So once that square breaks, then it flows forth, then there is movement, but it is calling you to deal with it. Whatever that is, looking at the Libra Cancer houses and helping that square break through. If we talk about the decans, the tarot cards that are associated with where Jupiter is, it's the Three of Cups, 3 women dancing, celebrating community. It's mercurial, it's fleeting, but it's ultimately supportive. Jupiter exalts in that decan of Cancer in that sign. And then where Mars is the Three of Swords, which is a heart with 3 swords in it. And so there's a little bit of disruption and heartache, and it has rain in it. It feels like a rainy day, like things are just going wrong. And you sometimes can be in that moment, but remembering the compassion that comes from that Three of Cups of what helps purify that heartbreak and helps move it forward. It's like bringing in the magic and the myth of the decans through the tarot can kind of put us in a story of what that means for you. So again, if you're Cancer rising, this is, the tension between you and in the first house and the home in the fourth. If you're Libra rising, it's you and work. If you're Scorpio rising, it's the 9th and the 12th. If you're, you could just kind of plug it in, like what are the Cancer and Libra houses and what tension is kind of building there. Well, it'll happen pretty quick too. That's the other thing is as Mars moves pretty quickly and it will go into Scorpio soon enough. So this does feel like something Mars can be in there kind of purifying by fire. But another thought that comes to mind is just removing the expectation of what's ideal and burn away what is not serving, even if it is the ideal thing of like, it can't, nothing is ever going to be good enough. So take what is good enough because it's like, if you can't be with the one you love the one you with. Like if you don't like your refrigerator, you have a refrigerator. Just get over it. Just get out of the ideal of like wanting this $5,000 retro pink fridge. Just you have a refrigerator. It's just like an example of getting out of your head and like beating yourself up of not having the ideal whatever relationship, job, wardrobe, car. It's like letting some of that burn away, but then not beating yourself up, because Mars and Libra can be a little internally inflicting and turn that confliction into disempowerment of, I may not have the ideal, but I can work towards it a little bit every day. And that impetus from the square from Jupiter can maybe give you some self-compassion for whatever circumstances you're in that Mars is having difficulty. I feel for the Libra risings, having Mars go through your first is never easy, even if you're a Mars ruled sign like I am. It's full of challenges and empowerment, and Mars is there to fight and defend. So what are you fighting for? What are you defending against?
Yeah, because Mars is in exile or detriment there because it's opposite Aries where it rules. So that's why Mars is struggling, and it's so unfamiliar for Mars. And it's the cardinal signs that feel it the most, which is Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn. And around that 18-degree mark is where it's most intense.
And it's about to go home in Scorpio, where it's at home. It's preferred home because it's a nocturnal Mars home as opposed to Aries, which is a diurnal Mars home. So it's like when you're like almost there and like everything is getting in your way. You just want to get home. It's like that fatigue. You feel as far away as you've ever been when you're so close to getting home. So I feel for Mars right here.
Yeah, because it's been traveling for 2 years as its journey around the zodiac. And in horror, we got a term, the Via Combusta, which is from 50
Oh yeah.
degrees of Libra. And this is where it's the most difficult trudge from, like, the Ten of Wands card of just that difficult trudge. It's like just getting there and just having to do that last bit, and then you'll be home and you can unpack and just enjoy those last 2 decans of Scorpio.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the Uranus retrograde in Gemini, which we've already talked about a fair bit, I think.
Mm-hmm. You kind of jumped to the front of the line.
Came up with the square, didn't it, really, to talk about Uranus. But yeah, I think all those Uranian visions of the disruption and the unexpected nature. But it can also bring insights as well, like the unexpected and awakenings and a call to liberation. So I often say, sort of, just be careful you're not taking too many risks. That can be the shadow, is that push to flip the script and break free can, if you're affected by this, so this is going to be the mutable signs, Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces. If you've got planets at early degrees and you're feeling that call to, I've got to change something and just break out of here, and it doesn't matter what it is, do seek help from trusted loved ones in what exactly you change, so you don't burn too many bridges, because sometimes that urge to just change anything, I don't care what, can lead you to taking risks that you might look back on and regret. And we don't want you to have regrets.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you understand the astrology and you know that's what's happening, you can maybe be a bit more considered in how you decide to work with Uranus with that, if it's calling you to change up your life, which it may well do.
Probably.
Station.
No, I mean, it's funny, like talking about Uranus and like I have like a scratchy throat, and it's just like, what is it about? It's like having to clear out some things to get to what I want to say.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like Uranus. It just like, it's like when when any barnacles get grown on it, symbolic and otherwise, it just has to like, shook them off. It does not want to be, it does not want to accumulate, and it wants to move. And like the point of Mercury is to move. It's like to go between places and to be unencumbered. And Mercury rules this Uranus. And so it's like unencumbered movement of Mercury. And then also just like the quickness of Uranus. So even like within astrology readings, like I look at just like what are the mundane omens that surround the reading itself, because those are also signals of what other interpretations, what other stories, what is the nature of the moment, and from the astrology that you're talking about, but then also just from your own personal existence. And it's just funny that, so like astrology good in these little ways.
Yeah. And it is significant as well to have Mercury in Virgo, where it's in domicile and exaltation, because that is Mercury's preferred home as well, if we say that, although it rules Gemini as well, because it has that dual nature of rulership in Virgo. So to have Uranus ruled by a Virgo Mercury just seems really nice for this station. And the fact that there's a Cassimi after it returns to that degree just feels like this one has a particular, sometimes the universe just gives us that neon sign saying, look here, that this degree is going to be significant. And it just feels like that's the case with this one. Like, I've even put a little ring around it.
Yeah, I was just looking at some historical pieces of like when Uranus was last at that degree. And it was March 25th, 1943. And so much of that is based around the Second World War, like the final war, is what they wanted it to be. And then before that, it was December 23rd, 1942. And before that, it was June 9th, 1942. So they're all based on, all the news of those times is mostly around war. And war is incredibly disruptive. There's one thing that kind of stood out is on the middle degree, the middle day of December 23rd, 1942, the first U.S. war loan drive concluded, exceeding its goal by raising $13 billion. $13 billion in 1942 is, somebody else do the math, it's just a lot of money then. It's going to be a tremendous amount of money now. So if you think of raising money, which is a currency, which is mercurial, for war. And in the US Sibley chart, Gemini is the 7th house of other. So it's like that accumulation, that quick over exceeding accumulation of mercurial things in relation to the other. It's for like something that's incredibly harmful. But the Second World War was very liberating, just on in a feminist point of view, of liberating the workforce so that women had to step in to work, at least in the States. And it opened women up to careers that had previously been denied them just because the status quo had men filling those jobs. But when the men went off to war, they still needed those jobs filled. Women stepped in, and then they realized that women could do the same job and that women enjoyed it, and that women could experience a liberated sort of a life. And that really propelled the women's movement forward because of that massive disruption. And that's an exaggerated example, but it is symbolic of the kind of what Patrick Watson talks about, of Uranian moments can feel malefic in the moment, like war, but benefic in the long run. I mean, there's the jury's out of whether it was benefic in the long run, but it definitely changed a lot. It changed a lot just globally, but then just within the feminist movement in the States, it put women into positions that then people couldn't necessarily take them out of as easily. And I just think of that with how complicated Uranus can be. That it's like removing ourselves from the status quo, for better or worse, is kind of what it does. And in Gemini, it's just so quick. And we'll get a sense of that when it squares its own ruler this first week of September. There's a meme that I found. It's like a little girl being interviewed by her mom, and her mom was like, "Are you going to be part of the problem or part of the solution?" And she looks at the camera and she's like, "I'm going to be the whole problem." And to me, I just keep saying that, like, that's Uranus. Like, Uranus is going to be the whole problem with the astrology, just screwing us all up.
We can look at this whole chart, but Uranus just bing, bing.
Yeah.
Talk about me.
See me? I'm going to make you talk about me. I'm going to touch everything in the chart.
Yeah, that's totally what's going on. And just got the exact dates here. Uranus returns to Taurus on the 8th of November 25. It will turn direct at 27 degrees on the 3rd of February 2026, and then return to Gemini on the 26th of April. So that gives us that timeline. And then you have the date that it gets back to 127. So.
Yeah, May 21st, I think that's what it was. Speaking of Mercury.
Yeah. Come join us as we spill the tea on astrology's version of a plot twist. So not Uranus this time, but the eclipses on September the 13th, 12 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be the evening in the UK for us. But 5 astrologers on a panel. Get us.
This is the joke. So the whole slide didn't come up. It's supposed to say Eclipse Workshop, but it's Eclipse Works, like fireworks. And that's what Uranus does. It just creates fireworks. But so do eclipses. Eclipses really do shift and change the plot of where you thought you were going. It's like, instead of explosions of gunpowder, it's explosions of fate. So the eclipse works.
So I have to get the slide to complete. I have to do that. And then it takes me to the next slide of the lunar.
Ta-da!
So the two are literally linked. But yeah, we've got a 3-hour workshop for you. The last hour will be breakout sessions where we'll do individual breakout rooms and individual chart readings. So depending on how many people, each of us astrologers that are present will each take a small group, and if you want to share your chart, then we can read it for you. And if you're practicing your chart reading skills, you're welcome to give your opinions as well. So if you want to come and practice your astrology reading, or you want to have your chart read, whichever way you're looking at it, come and join us for those breakout sessions as well. But the first 2 hours will be turning the jewel. Each of us are looking at one specific area of eclipses and just sharing what we've researched for you with the slides. And then we're also writing a workbook. It's still in the Virgo workshop at the moment, but it will be out this week. So that you'll have it in time for the 7th, before the first eclipse, which we'll talk about shortly.
And this slide also says Asteri Sophia Chi.
Yeah, you get the Ross when it slips to the...
It's all change, just like the slide says. It's all change.
So yeah, that's what's so funny. So I'll put the link in the show notes. It's the super valuable price of $22. And also, if you sign up to Christa, mine, Janessa's, Shauna's Substacks as a paying subscriber, you'll get a discount code. So you can even reduce that further. So it's super value. It's a great time to sign up as a paying subscriber to any of us and get that code. The link is also being eclipsy to us. So if the link doesn't work, just navigate to Ko-fi and go to Asterae Sophia Kairos and find our shop and make sure that it's the fall autumn eclipses that you're signing up to.
I figure that if you make it there, then you belong.
Yes, if you can get through all of that, then yes, come to explore our workshop. And if you can't make it live, you'll get the recording, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But we really hope you can make it live as well, because it brings the energy. You can ask the questions that you need to ask, those burning questions, and also benefit from that breakout session at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like getting a mini reading, a workshop that you can hold on to, and then a workbook that you can use outside of this eclipse season. We hold these on the eclipses so that it's a way to anchor yourself a little bit into the astrology when the eclipses come. It's like being trapped inside your house while a storm's brewing. You can't really go outside anyway and make sense of what the situation is. So you look internally, and looking internally within your own chart, where your nodes are, where your luminaries are, all the things. It's like we give you these little prompts to plug in the current eclipses into your natal chart, but then also just to look at your own eclipse story so you can use it outside of it. But if you're listening to the forecast, hopefully you'll catch it in time. And we hope you join us live, because it's so much more fun with more people. And then you get the chance for the cost of entry to get a little mini reading of your own natal chart, which I think is definitely is worth it alone.
It really is super value.
So this is the lunar eclipse in Pisces. This eclipse season series is the only one that's within the same sign axis. So in April, we had one that's been over into the last of Aries, Libra. I guess it was just Aries, but that Aries, Libra axis. This eclipse series is just within the Pisces, Virgo. Next year, we're going to have a little bleed over into the Aquarius, Leo axis. So this is my favorite of all of them, is this moment, is this week. So after the disruption of Uranus and Mercury, we get this really beautiful story with the moon in Pisces at 15 degrees and the sun in Virgo at 15 degrees. So it's a full moon. So think of full moons as the moon casting its biggest sail possible to reflect as much of the solar light. So full moon in Pisces is just that Pisces compassionate vessel capturing all of the sun's light from Virgo. But the nodes are there very close, 3 degrees away. That's why there was a new moon earlier in Virgo season, but the nodes were too far away to be considered an eclipse. So that has to be within 15 degrees. These are very close. The reason why we see an eclipse is because the nodes are so close, that pathway point of the ecliptic. We have a full moon, we have an eclipse, and this is a real pivotal point for the pivotal mutable signs. It's like the middle degrees of the mutable signs. So it is really at this crossroads within a crossroads, is kind of how I see it. And we have Mercury at home and exalted there in Virgo. And then we have the ruler of the moon here, ruler of Pisces, exalted itself over there in Cancer, trining the north node and sextiling the south node. So those alone are really, really beautiful. Now, the exaltation of Pisces is Venus. She's at a site of Pisces and Virgo, so she's averse to this. But the luminaries and then the rulers of the domicile rulers of the luminaries right now are both exalted. And I think just that alone is such a really supportive, exalted, the best that we can have this year, I think is this day. What are you looking at, Sonia?
Yeah, I totally agree. They're both in really nice decans. Venus is decan on one side and Jupiter's decan on the other side. It's as nice as it ever gets, I think, as an eclipse could get. And the trine to Jupiter, just like the cherry on the top. It really is. If you could ever get a nice eclipse, that is. We've got this image here of what a lunar eclipse looks like. We've got the sun and the moon, and usually they're opposite for a full moon. And here we've got the Earth traveling in between, and it's the Earth that's casting its shadow on the moon. And that's what's cutting out the sun's light. And this one is a total one. So that means that the Earth is totally blocking off. That reflective light of the moon is totally shut off. So like a computer being switched off and on again, that total restart, death and rebirth, really, of those lunar themes in Pisces. So it really is a reset for those mutable people. And yeah, the Deccan Austin Coppock calls it the net. And I shared a verse in my writing from T. Susan Chang, and it really is most beautiful about magical wells and our words being spells that we cast and building those foundations. So I can read a little bit of it. When dropped into a magic well, a prayer becomes a kind of spell. All the faith I dare to feel taking form within the real. The line I cast, the web I weave, foundation of all I receive. So that just feels really nice to lean into the energy of this eclipse being so benefic and just remembering that we can weave that web and lay that foundation. And then, of course, I go into this Saros series of how lunar eclipses and lunations in general can be connected to past events in our lives and through moon families as well. The Saros series is a cycle that takes 18 years and 11 days, but we also have a half series when the nodes are reversed. So 18 years ago would have been when the North Node was in Pisces, like it is now. And then that would have been in 2007. And then in 2016, 2015, 2016, the South Node would have been in Pisces. And that would have been the same kind of themes coming up. And this series is number 41, like event number 41 of Saros series 128. And you can actually Google the lunar series of 128, and it will give you loads of information of all the different eclipses that there's been in history if you really want to check that kind of thing out, which I always do. I love to dive into them and find out more. And then there's always a matching solar eclipse, but it'll be a different number for the Virgo solar eclipse. But they come in pairs. Bernadette Brady also has written her book, The Eagle and the Lark, and she pairs them up in a different kind of way and calls this the Saros series 09 New South, pairing the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse in Virgo that comes up in September together. And she looks at the astrology of the first eclipse. And I'll be talking more about that in the workshop, going a little bit deeper into it. But it can bring to the surface concerns and worries about loved ones' health or responsibilities with paperwork. And that makes me think about Virgo and what Christa was saying earlier about that desire for perfection. And I always think about Virgo and the way that it can be concerned with stomach issues. And I talk about unattainable perfection with Virgo, that sometimes that's the shadow side of it, that there's that quest for things that are just not human, not possible, and that we can get lost in that and forget that sometimes we need to release things and move on. That sometimes things, if you aimed for it to be too perfect, it never gets finished. You know, it's like when I was studying it with year one, we were given so much information. And at some point I had to realize that actually I couldn't read and study everything and absorb it all in order to move on to the following week, the following week's work. And I had to release that desire to absorb all of it and understand that if I was going to keep up with my studies, I was going to have to leave some of it to come back to. And my Virgo planets were just, okay, how are we going to do this? And it was like, right, if I'm going to get through the whole year and keep up with my study group and my study mates, I'm going to have to just absorb the required reading and do that and let my desire to absorb everything go. And that's,
I think it's also related to, Virgo in the Northern Hemisphere. It is the harvesting time. And it's like, if you don't harvest it now, it will rot until next year. Like at the end of Virgo, beginning of Libra is the fall equinox. So it gets darker and darker and darker. You can't grow things anymore. And I think there is like a frugality and wanting to, utilize as much as possible in the limited time that we have. And I think that's also a driver for Mercury. It's not just to get it right, but it's like, I understand how much effort it went to grow all this, and I want to do my best to honor it by harvesting it now. And so that I think Virgo will push itself further. It will stay up late studying. It will go the extra mile to get everything correct because it's honoring all of that work, all of that duty, all that diligence into what it's harvesting, because it does see, if we interpret it with a light, it's like, I know that it's going to get darker and it's going to be a full year before things start to come back to harvest again. So I better get it while it's hot, because I understand how fleeting this moment is. just to give a little compassionate viewpoint of Virgo, it's not just getting it right. It's like kind of reading the room of seeing like, it's getting dark out. I want to get as much of this harvested before the sun actually finally goes down, you know?
Yeah. So Mercury's skills can be that classification, and part of that is just learning to prioritize and learning what has to be let go.
Hear that, Virgo?
And that's to keep the health of your stomach healthy, because your health is right at the top of that list of priorities. So it's like, okay, your health and these details and what's important, and let's work out this priority list and get that right. So
And in Chinese medicine, the different organs that hold the different emotions, and the gut holds guilt.
yeah,
And that's so much. It's like, releasing it in a way that you're not going to feel guilty if you haven't gotten to it. It's like, it wasn't yours to hold. So if you're holding guilt, you can feel it in your gut.
yeah. And that makes me think of like Pisces and this endless compassion. And is there room there for compassion for yourself? Can you holding compassion for the world and for the other people in your sphere? But where is your compassion for yourself? And if you hold that compassion and love for yourself, then you can find it to allow yourself to prioritize and to allow yourself to set healthy expectations on yourself, and just keep your Virgo planets happy enough.
Yeah, because the sun is at 15 degrees, which is the exaltation degree of where Mercury is exalted. Mercury isn't quite there yet, but they're both in the decan of the 9 of coins, which shows a very successful woman in beautiful garb in a garden of all of her abundance. So I like this moment as a reminder of taking stock of all that you have achieved in that Virgo house, all that you have harvested, and be satisfied with it and sit with it and in that exalted place of looking at all the work that has gotten you here. And to that in itself of just reflecting, slowing down, reflecting and appreciating is self-care. It is telling yourself like, I have worked to this point, but look at all that I have to show for it. And it is beautiful. It's Venus after all. Venus is decan.
Yeah, and like these nodes work like as the hail and the head and the tail of the dragon. So they work like as a figure of 8, churning things up in our lives. And I think of like the ocean and the silt on the ocean bed being churned up and everything rising to the surface. And we've kind of got no power over what gets risen up and what is brought into view. And that's the nature of eclipses, is this uncontrollable. Chris Brennan talks about great beginnings and great endings and accelerated change, things like that can happen at this time of eclipses. But it's really just if it aspects your chart. So sometimes astrologers are talking a lot and then people go through it and they're like, nothing really changed. And also when I was writing about it, I talked about, think of them more like the change of tectonic plates. Like it's imperceptible, the change, but it's also irreversible. Once it has moved, there's no putting that toothpaste back in the tube. Once those plates and continents have shifted, they're not going back together. They're shifting into a new position. So really just watch omens and signs and the way that the universe is communicating to us. We're in the eclipse window now and we're already noticing eclipsy things happening. So keep a journal, keep a dream diary. It's like really super useful around this time because it's kind of giving you hints and tips of what's going on. And look back to those years, 2007, 2016, and see what messages they hold, if it does affect your chart. And if those years aren't ringing any bells for you, you can probably like move on and ignore this one. For me, those years were particularly memorable and I had to check, but actually it's my Scorpio planet, which of course is a water sign that's being directly impacted. But of course with water, it's the trilogy, the water trilogy, Cancer, Pisces and Scorpio, that can also be affected. So that's what was pinging it for me.
Yeah. So if you want to know more about your own personal, just join us for the workshop. We've made the space so that we can dive deeper into it. And we're doing it in between the 2 eclipses while we're in the middle of it. So join us in the midst of the storms.
Yeah, because last time I think we did it before, and it's just sometimes when you're in the middle of it, those things have already started happening. So we can all share about our own experiences and what's been happening. That will be really useful.
Yep.
The other thing I wanted to say is Uranus is still at this square point it's in a whole sign square now. When we had the Virgo new moon, it was in an exact square. So my feeling is that we're kind of in the aftershocks. We've had the square from Mercury to Uranus, and we've had the square from a new moon to Uranus. So I feel like really it's kind of a flowing force situation, that things are playing out. So even though there is still this whole sign T square to Uranus, it's not as intense, but it is still there.
Yeah, and the day before it'll exactly square the luminaries. So it'll exactly square the moon.
Yeah.
And so the day before this eclipse, the square will happen, and then the eclipse will be that flowing forth. And then 2 days before the next eclipse, it'll square the moon again. So we'll have the Uranus square just prior to the eclipse moment. So the eclipse itself, it'll be whatever has been disrupted and churned up from that electrified serpent of Uranus and Gemini.
Still got something to say. Still wants to join this conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah, I noticed you have not said my name in a few minutes.
I haven't.
No, I was speaking for Uranus.
Oh, Uranus isn't falling to you.
Yeah.
It will.
Watch out, Uranus. I'm going to start calling you Uranus if you
Yeah.
keep butting into the conversation.
You won't like that at all.
Or George or Herschel or whatever your old names were. I do like Prometheus as the name for the energy that Uranus brings, but Uranus is the name. It's the collective zeitgeist myth that we have created by naming it Uranus and sticking to it. Although it does have Promethean, but I guess Promethean is more Pluto, right?
Oh, I think of like Hades. Yeah, I think of Prometheus as
For
like the
Uranus.
Lord of fire, like that
Mm.
that he gave fire to mankind, and then
Mm-hmm.
he was condemned. Like in that Circe book I read, she met him and helped him, but he was accepting of his fate. He knew what he was doing and what it would mean. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and to eternal torture. That's no light thing for
Yeah.
fire to mankind. It's like really significant. So when he brings us the electricity and the fire and the light, it's quite a significant gift.
Yeah. It's the illumination, the enlightenment, the technology, the advancement, the revealing, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's deep meaning behind it, and deep intention. It's not something that was done lightly in the myth.
There was something as the word apocalypse, it means to uncover or reveal. And just thinking about the eclipses and Uranus being disruptive and all that, of the end of the world as we know it, the apocalypse of the world is really revealing the world that we have created so that we can create something new. And apocalypse doesn't mean the end of all life, but that apocalypse is the revealing of kind of what we're all in. And I've been thinking that a lot with Uranus and Gemini's, have that really fast, sped up, quick unveiling of truth and enlightenment.
Yeah, look at what you've built. Look on
Mhm.
she mighty in despair. That sort of energy. Okay.
Well, we're ending on that Uranian note.
Thank you, Uranus. We'll be back next week to look at the 10th to the 17th. Thank you, Christa.
Yeah,
Practical
of
Life.
course.
And if you've enjoyed this, please remember to like, subscribe, and do comment with your experiences if Uranus has shown up for you this week. We'd love to know and hear about it.
Yeah, and shout out to Dee Dee, who always comments. She always shares her insights, and Dee Dee's an excellent astrologer and just human on Earth. So thanks, Dee Dee, for always kind of sharing your reflections, because it does deepen our own understanding of how the transits hit other people outside of what we intellectualize. So
It does. Yeah, I love
thanks.
that story that Dee shared
Mm-hmm.
with the children and the song and humming.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, that was really interesting.
Yep. And she also likes to unravel tangled chains.
Yeah, I mean, I get satisfaction when I do it, but I only do it when I have to.
Yeah.
I don't collect them to do.
You aren't given them by other people to do like I am.
No, I don't volunteer to do them. So I can't claim to be on the same level as you and Dee Dee. But thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.